The deal was made without a handshake, inside a room with no chairs, through a door that never opened. At noon count, every man on Sea Yard stopped moving. The phones went quiet. The wait bench stood empty. Under the tower's glass, a single paper square slid along the concrete like a tiny boat. It tapped a boot, bumped a drain, kissed a wall, and vanished under a door slot. 10 seconds later, the whole yard changed shape at once. Lines split, benches cleared, and 3 men who never stood together stood shoulder to shoulder. No guard called the order. No officer blew a whistle. Still the yard obeyed. Officer Rivera felt his stomach drop. On his radio, control asked, "Everything calm?" He said, yes, because it was. But he knew the truth, the calm didn't belong to him. It belonged to the politics under the politics, the quiet power of prison gangs at Pelican Bay. A soft cough sounded from the far bench. The 3 men at center stepped back the width of a shoe. From the tower, the warden watched through glass and kept his face like stone. The red light over the gate blinked once, then held steady. The yard did not explode. It had been ready to. It did not. A truce had landed. The paper that sealed it was the size of a matchbox. How did we get here? Start earlier, when the morning fog still hugged the razor wire and the gulls cried like rusty hinges. Leo was new. He had learned to keep his eyes low and his ears open. Dante, older and calm, walked the tier with him. "You think this place is just fights," Dante said, voice low. "It's not. It's politics. Like a city council with worse lighting." "Politics?" Leo asked. He pictured suits and microphones, not steel and concrete. Dante smiled a tired smile. "Power talks," he said. "It just doesn't always use words." He pointed with his chin, not his hand. "See the benches? That's the council. See the phones? That's the budget. See the showers? That's the hallway where deals get whispered. Every group here has leaders. They're not loud. They're careful. They keep storms small, unless they need a storm." Nurse Tanya pushed her med cart past, cups clinking. "Morning," she said to both men, using their names like little lifelines. She checked a list taped to the handle. Ask about headaches. Check sleep. Names kept people human. Officer Rivera walked the opposite way, coffee cooling in his hand. He watched the tiny things. A cup turned handle in, then handle out. A man who usually sat near the TV taking a seat by the window instead. 2 younger men switching places in the phone line without a word. None of it broke a rule. All of it meant something. By late morning the air felt tight, like a drumhead. A rumor had crossed the wire during the week. A bad fight in another yard, old anger waking up. Here in Pelican Bay the leaders were trying to keep it from spreading. It wasn't about friendship. It was math. Violence brings lockdown. Lockdown brings shakedowns. Shakedowns bring losses. Phones, food spots, privileges, even family visits. Politics tries to make the losses smaller. "Today will be one of those days," Dante said. "You'll see how power moves without moving." "What does that look like?" Leo asked. "Like benches clearing a second before the whistle," Dante said. "Like enemies breathing the same air for 5 minutes and not choking on it." On the yard, the benches filled in patterns only the older men could read at a glance. The watchtower glass flashed like a cold eye. The mountains beyond the fences looked too far away to be real. The kite, the folded paper, began its walk, pushed by a sneaker here, slowed by a pebble there, guided by a room that agreed to guide it. The note did not say much. Notes rarely do. They are more like keys. This one unlocked 4 small things. A phone time swap, a shower change, a seat move, and a promise. No one would approach the tower side of the yard in the next 15 minutes. That last line was not about weakness. It was about proof. "We keep our word," it said. "You keep yours." Rivera felt the yard lean just a little, toward peace. He did not relax. Peace can break its ankle in one step. But he let himself take half a breath deeper. At the benches, 3 older men sat like stones in a creek. They did not nod. They did not smile. They watched the men they spoke for the way coaches watch a team. One of them was called Victor by his people. One was called Manny by his. One was called Cruz by almost no one. People used a nickname that had nothing to do with his file. Each had a second in command standing just close enough to hear, just far enough not to crowd. This was the council Dante met. Victor's second stepped forward and set a foam cup on the ground, handle facing out. Manny's second stepped forward and set his cup down too, handle facing in. Cruz didn't touch a cup. He lifted his hand once, palm flat, then rested it on his knee. "That's a vote," Dante said softly to Leo. "A vote for what?" Leo asked. 15 minutes, Dante said. We give, they give. Across the yard, a younger man glanced toward the phones. A second looked away at the sky. A third rolled his shoulders and let the air leak out slow. From the tower, the warden said nothing. Saying nothing was saying yes. A small thing wrong almost knocked it all down. Two men who should not stand near each other stepped too close. It was an accident, a shadow, a habit, a heartbeat out of rhythm. Every eye that cared saw it. The yard tensed like a bridge under a heavy truck. Cruz stood. He only stood. That was enough. The two men took a half step back at the same time and stared at the concrete like it had something to say. The bridge held. See, Dante said. Politics. That one stand probably saved 10 days of lockdown. Leo nodded. He understood a little now. This wasn't softness. It was control. When the 15 minutes ended, something almost nobody talks about happened. An officer from programs, shirt tucked, tie straight, voice steady, walked to the tower side with a clipboard and a message. He didn't shout. He didn't order. He offered. Education slots are open next quarter, he said to the air, not to a person. If the yard stays clean, we can double GED sign-ups. He was not talking to the men who take classes. He was talking to the men who make classes possible by turning down the temperature when it starts to boil. He was bargaining with power he could not name in a report. The council heard him. So did the yard. So did Rivera. He blew a little breath out his nose. Smart, he thought. Pay politics with something that builds, not something that breaks. The kite completed its last slide and touched a boot near the center. A hand covered it like a cloud, then lifted. The deal was done for the day. The yard stayed calm. Not fake calm. Real calm that takes work. Back inside, the day found its low. Trays clinked. Vents hummed. The TV showed a game with the sound off. Nurse Tanya handed out evening meds and wrote "Sleep okay?" next to 3 names. Rivera stood at the officer's desk, flipping pages he had already read, watching faces he already knew. Then a new note arrived. It didn't slide on the ground. It came in a legal envelope, stamped and clean, into the mail room through the chain down the hall. The label looked ordinary. The timing did not. Rivera saw the seal and felt the hair rise on his arms. Legal mail must be opened in front of the inmate. Rules are rules. But some envelopes are as loud as alarms without making a sound. The letter was for Cruz. It reached his slot at the exact minute the tower clock clicked from 5:14 to 5:15. That mattered. Numbers tell stories here. The officer at the door followed policy. He held the envelope up. Legal mail, he said. The hand inside the slot waited. The officer opened the flap in full view, shook the pages, checked for extras, then passed them through. Cruz did not read right away. He rested the papers on the inner shelf and stared at them like you stare at a storm cloud that may pass or may not. Dante, 2 doors down, sat very still. Leo copied him. Is it bad? Leo whispered. It's something, Dante said. Politics never sleeps long. Rivera walked to the end of the tier and used the mirror to watch without crowding. He saw Cruz take the first page and hold it to the light. He saw his shoulders go a little tight. He saw him relax them on purpose so the room wouldn't feel him tense. Cruz slid one sheet back through the slot. Not to the officer. To the air. A second pulled it under a door 2 cells down, fast and neat. A third pulled at the same time on the other side. The page split like a map torn in half. Both halves vanished. No voices. No hurry. Just politics doing what politics does, sharing risk and spreading power. Rivera's radio hissed. Control to C-tier. Program change tomorrow. Yard time split. Phones cut by half. He closed his eyes for half a second. Splitting yards changes math. Cutting phones cuts budgets. Deals get harder when the table gets smaller. From behind Cruz's door came a tiny sound, like a thumbnail testing a match head. Dante stood. He looked at Leo only long enough to say one easy word, breathe, then turned his face to the wall. The tier went quiet in a new way. Not the soft quiet of safe evenings. The tight quiet of lines being redrawn. In the tower, the warden lifted his own radio. He said, calm and plain, if you can keep this peaceful, I can argue the cut is temporary. He was talking to his staff. He was also talking to the council through the glass. Victor's second set his cup down, handle out. Manny's second set his cup down, handle in. Cruz didn't touch a cup. He slid a single corner of paper back through the slot so only white showed to the room. That was his vote, not yet. Rivera watched the red light over the inner door. It blinked once, slow. The clock clicked from 5:19 to 5:20. The kite reappeared like a ghost, smaller than before, as if the day had eaten most of it. It moved 3 feet and stopped dead, pinned by nothing anyone could see. Leo felt the air change like wind before thunder. From the far end of the tier, a door buzzed at the wrong time. Keys clinked. Boots in the tunnel. Then the speaker cracked and a voice said the words that turned politics into fire. Unexpected search. Now. The alarms stopped faster than they should have. That was the first sign that the search wasn't really a search. By the time the officers reached the tier, every man inside knew what was happening. This wasn't about contraband. It was about control. Someone, somewhere, had lost patience with the balance crews and the others had built. The system was resetting the board. Officer Rivera stood in the tunnel, radio in hand, watching the tactical team fan out. He didn't like this kind of move. It broke rules written and unwritten. You can't storm a room ruled by politics without shaking loose consequences. The officers barked orders: hands up, back wall, step back. Doors buzzed. Boots stomped. The metal and echo filled every corner. But no one resisted. The inmates stood still, silent as statues. In Pelican Bay, silence can be louder than riot. Cruz pressed his hands to the wall, eyes calm. He had expected this. The letter had told him it might come. The search was the next move in a game that had no official scoreboard. The guards moved cell to cell, checking vents, turning mattresses, opening lockers, flipping pages. Rivera's flashlight passed over stacks of handwritten notes, addresses, sketches, poems, but nothing dangerous. Not on paper anyway. Cell clear, one officer said. Next, Rivera answered, though his voice lacked conviction. 2 cells down, Dante watched the search team pull out Cruz's legal papers. He saw them hesitate over one particular folder. It was marked with a single word: appeal. That's where it is, Leo whispered through the vent, barely moving his lips. Where what is? Dante asked. The list, Leo said. The one they all talk about. The men who vote when no one sees. Dante didn't answer. He had heard about that list too, the paper that tracked the chain of command across yards and years. But he didn't believe it still existed. A thing like that would be suicide if found. Then Rivera saw something strange. As the sergeant lifted the folder, one corner fell open and a thin square of soap slipped out. The sergeant frowned, tapped it against the desk, and it cracked clean in half. Inside was a piece of carbon paper no bigger than a cigarette box. On it, faint lines formed names. Not full names, initials, codes, tiny marks that only meant something to the right eyes. The sergeant looked at Rivera. What do you think? Rivera shook his head. I think we just found politics written in invisible ink. They sealed the evidence bag. But as they left, Rivera glanced back once. Cruz hadn't moved. He was watching him, calm, almost pitying. You'll never understand what you're holding, Cruz said quietly. Then explain it, Rivera replied. Cruz smiled. You don't ask kings how crowns work. You just guard the gate. The search ended before sunset. Lockdown followed. The lights stayed dim, the air thick with suspicion. Hours later, Rivera walked past Cruz's door again. You know what this means? He asked through the slot. Yes, Cruz said. It means someone's trying to change the rules. Whose rules? All of ours. He slid something through the slot, a folded paper no bigger than a dollar bill. Rivera caught it before instinct told him not to. When he opened it, he saw only a single sentence. The wrong man is speaking for us. That night, the entire tier changed its rhythm. Cups stopped tapping. Vents went quiet. The silence was no longer obedience, it was strategy. Something big was about to shift. In the dark, Leo whispered through the vent. What's happening now? Dante exhaled slowly. A vote without ballots, he said. That's how wars start here. By morning, Rivera learned the lockdown had spread to 2 other yards. The warden called it a preventive measure. But to the men inside, it was a declaration. Pelican Bay's underworld wasn't built on rage. It was built on order. And when that order cracked, chaos didn't roar. It whispered. At noon, Rivera got a call to escort Cruz to the interview room. The warden wanted to negotiate. Cruz stepped out of his cell, cuffed and steady. You ever wonder, he asked Rivera, why this place never truly breaks down? Because of rules, Rivera said. Cruz smiled again, thin and sharp. No. Because the people who live here understand power better than the ones who built it. As they walked down the hallway, Rivera realized what scared him wasn't Cruz's words, it was the truth behind them. Every decision made inside Pelican Bay, from yard times to peace treaties, began with whispers. And right now, those whispers were turning into plans. Something was moving again. And this time no one, not the guards, not the warden, not even Cruz, could see where it would stop. The paper trail that started with a folded kite was now rewriting the balance of power across the entire prison system. And Rivera, for the first time, wasn't sure which side of the bars he was really on. The sound of a metal door locking behind them echoed down the hall, long and final, like the punctuation mark at the end of a sentence no one wanted to finish. The game had changed. And Pelican Bay's politics were about to get louder.